Welcome to the Goody Room, your one-stop shop for everything movies, TV, and more. We know you want the goodies. Welcome to the Goody Room. I'm Matt the Nachos. With me always is the Murphy to my RoboCop. How are we doing today, Frankie Rock?
Oh, we're doing pretty good. You know, I'm just so happy we're recording again. You know, look at us, 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So usually we kind of don't really pre-plan these recordings. Like it maybe once, twice a month if we can get to it. But, you know, Frank is going to be, you know, soon a father of two. Congratulations, Frank.
Thank you.
And congratulations to the rest of your family, too. But
right. You know, they'll be around for that, you know.
Yeah, right. But, you know, so we're trying to get in a few episodes before, you know, the baby arrives. So, you know, we're on our third week here. And, you know, we just released our latest episode. And we're going to have that we recorded a second episode that's going to release in a couple of weeks, and then, you know, you'll see this when you see it.
Right. Yeah. Whenever this comes out, it comes out. And, you know, I don't know when we'll be back. Hopefully mid-November before Thanksgiving, we'll get an episode in. But, you know, I'm literally at a point now, like after today, it's just one day at a time. And that's all I'm thinking about.
Yeah, and the Goody Room doesn't work unless both of us are here. So
that's right. It's a Goody Room of two.
yeah. The solo act that would not work. No. You guys just don't want me. Believe me. I know I'm funny. I know I crack jokes at Frank, but you know, I need Frank. All right, he's my Murphy.
It's like warming my heart a little bit. But I'm like also biting my tongue not to like throw a put down at your throat, you know, throw an insult your way, because that was like genuinely nice of you.
Yeah, because you're my guy in the chair, bro.
That's right. Well, you know, I volunteered to be the guy in the chair. Like that was one of the first conversations about this podcast was like, I want to be the guy in the chair. You're like, what? And I said, yeah, I didn't stutter.
Yeah, so there you go. There we have it. But you know, we kind of, I've been making a few RoboCop jokes because we are going to get into, you know, revisit something here, movie RoboCop, right, that came out in the 80s. Frank and I have talked, you know, offline about how ridiculous the movie is. And, you know, we have some retro recommendations for you, you know, and some stream and Botch options that pertain or relate to RoboCop. So we're going to get right into it. But first, streamer Botch, right? We're going to tell you whether or not we think it's a stream, if we liked it, if you know, should go out of your way to kind of see it, or, you know, if it's a botch, maybe, you know, wait for something else, or, you know, don't really waste your time. But Frank, again, the hero, the champion of the Goody Room, making it out to the theater. I mean, you'd be going to a lot of movies.
Well, you know, and I agree. I've been gone, you know, since the summer started. And I said, oh, I don't think I'll go see a lot of movies this summer. I think I might have saw all the movies this summer. And it just kind of bled into the fall. But I do think the movie we're going to talk about today will probably be the last movie I get to go see, probably Thanksgiving or Christmas. And unfortunately, it had to be this one that I ended with. And it was an incredible run. I saw some great movies this summer. I saw some really great movies.
It actually is a great run because, you know, a lot of them I had interest in seeing, but I didn't make it out to the theater. So now I'm like anxiously waiting for them to come out on digital where I can rent or watch them.
Right. Well, you know, give me 5 minutes to talk about this movie. And, you know, it's a spoiler alert to begin with. This is an absolute botch. I won't tell you what the movie is first. And I guarantee viewers and listeners, by the time this episode airs, it will be out to buy and or streaming for free on HBO Max. I will tell you, I went into this movie, I really checked my expectations because the early reviews were not great. Okay, fine. That's fine. I've seen a lot of movies that had awful reviews that I've loved. So, you know, that doesn't detract me at all. I want my opinion. Unfortunately, This was without a doubt one of the worst movies I have ever seen in my life. Like, it just was awful. And I hate trashing on movies. But without further ado, Matt, what movie are we talking about tonight?
I mean, it's no other than Joker 2, which is really disappointing for me as well. I read a lot of the reviews. I saw a lot of what people were saying, and I said, you know what, Frank's going to go see this. I really trust. Frank's one of the only opinions I trust when it comes to movies because we have similar tastes. And he went and saw it, and he gave me the same result, and I was like, man, that's just so unfortunate.
So a lot of, when the movie was first announced, a lot of us were like, wait, I thought there was only going to be one. And they said, well, when your movie makes $1 billion, whether you want it to or not, you're getting another one. It's just science at this
Yeah,
point.
and actually, we'll get into it, but the same thing happened with the other one we're going to bring up later in the retro Counsel, RoboCop.
Yeah, exactly. So Joker 1 not only did it reach $1 billion, but Joaquin Phoenix won the Oscar for Best Actor, second actor to win the Oscar for portraying the character of Joker. And I want to say everything that made the first one special, the darkness, the thought-provoking storyline, how it raised questions like, are we getting enough help to the people with mental problems? Should we be better people to random strangers? Things like that. All these little things that, you walked out of theater and you just kind of were haunted with for a few days after watching the movie. There was none of that type of storytelling. All the main characters from the first movie returned, and this is one of my biggest issues about it. In the first movie, the way that they portray the Joker character is you're not sure of with what you're seeing on screen is actually happening. Is this just part of his mental lapses and whatnot, or is this a second personality taking over, or is what he's seeing actually what's happening, or is there something else going on? And they did a really great job of kind of not explaining any of that. It was just up to the viewer. And that for me was probably my favorite part, other than, just the different take on Gotham City and the characters. In this movie, when they bring characters back from the first movie, it completely renders each and every one of those scenes useless. And it gives you the answer like, okay, it happened exactly as it was portrayed. And that ruins the first movie for me. Lady Gaga was announced to play Harley Quinn, and I've always loved Lady Gaga as a performer. I thought she was great in A Star Is Born.
Yeah,
What did you think of her in A Star Is Born?
I thought she was great, and when I heard that, I was like, oh yeah, like I can totally see it. Let's do it.
And I saw it too, and I thought, okay, nothing against Margot Robbie's performance. Love Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. And I wasn't sitting here going, she's going to be better than Margot Robbie. I honestly thought to myself,
different movies though.
different movie. And I said, this will be a performance that will be like a great like companion to Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. And Lady Gaga is great. But the thing about it is the script and how they portray Harley Quinn really, just they were like, I can't help but feel they said, how can we make the most meh or mid or boring Harley Quinn possible? And that's what we're going to do to put her alongside Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. I honestly feel like I should talk about the ending because the movie kept building and it just kept building the tension. And where it ends up going is just so lackluster, and it just I feel unfulfilled. And
a lot of people, if I can just jump in here, a lot of the comments I saw online, people absolutely could not stand the ending. They didn't understand it. And they were like, why did you do this?
So without spoiling, no, I'm sorry, I'm going to spoil it. Guys, this is going to be a spoiler review.
Oh, no.
Red alert.
So towards the end of the movie, Joaquin Phoenix decides that he doesn't want to be the Joker anymore. And okay, fine. I'm thinking like they're setting it up for another one, because clearly this, in my mind at this point, there's a big twist going to come. And there was a twist that did come. And through him not wanting to be the Joker anymore, Lady Gaga, her Harley, doesn't want anything to do with him because she doesn't want Arthur Fleck. She wants the Joker. She doesn't see him as just the human, the person. She sees him as the icon. So he goes back to prison, and there is a inmate that was shown maybe once or twice in the background of the background. Walks up to him, says, "Hey, Arthur," stabs him and shanks him in the prison. And as Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is laying on the ground, bleeding out, dying, you see this other random dude who we've maybe seen for probably 3 seconds at this point carve a smile into his face and essentially becomes the new Joker. And this is how the movie ends. So you can imagine you're sitting in the theater and it's like the rug's getting pulled out from underneath you. We went through all of this, that first movie, now this second movie of buildup, and only for this guy not to be the Joker. That's insane to me. And to be honest, Matt, I'm mad. I'm just mad because I get the feeling like they made this movie bad on purpose to make people like you and I feel like this, and it worked because I'm so mad.
It feels like they're trying to like get you thinking this is like tied to one of the other movies, one of the other Batman movies. That's what it means to me.
And you know, there's been a lot of talk online how this was the origin of Heath Ledger's Joker. Sorry, not possible. The Batman origins don't connect or add up.
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, this was its own separate thing. It should have just stayed its own separate thing. You're absolutely right. It's all this buildup, and you didn't spoil for me because I already read it online. I was like, I got to see what people are talking about.
Sure.
So I just read about it.
I'm honestly surprised I didn't get the random text message a few days ago. All right, so just tell me what happened, because I would have absolutely told you, but.
I already knew. And I read that and I was just like, that's so dumb. Like he is Joker. Like this should be him finally transforming into that character, like, and just mayhem. And then if you wanted I bet you it would have grossed all kinds of money and you would have been on to a trilogy.
So Todd Phillips, the writer director behind this was like, so the movie came out Thursday. On Tuesday, announced on Twitter or whatever platform he's on, he's like, "I'm done with DC. I'm moving on." You coward. He said that because he knew he was going to be fired. He knew it was terrible. And I fell down a bit of a rabbit hole because I wanted to talk about some of this. The stuff that's now coming out about the production of this movie, and did you see Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix standing next to each other? And he like leans into her at like one of the premieres, and a lip reader figured it out. He said, "This movie's terrible." Like, of course. And you know, I just felt like with this side universe of like, you didn't even have to stick to the Batman villains. Would have been smart to stick to the Batman villains, but you could have gone anywhere with it. Didn't even have to be a villain. It could have been another character. Like, let's do a character piece on this comic book character. I mean, look what you did with the first one. You won Oscars. You were going to get $1 billion. All you had to do was stay on course. But no, let's do this crazy ending. I don't know. I am honestly baffled. I'm baffled.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, you went completely off the rails with this.
Yeah.
It's not what people wanted, and you knew it was bad, but this was a hyped up movie, right? Like they spent a lot of advertising money on this.
The budget for the first one was like $60 million. The budget for this one was $200 million. It's now on track to lose the studio $160 million. And this is a studio that allegedly is $40 billion in debt already. Like, and
you just had to stay on target. Like you were going to destroy the Death Star, right? You just got to stay on target.
And Matt, a couple things that I can't help but think. after the last year of not watching superhero movies and taking a break, and Deadpool brought me right back, got me hyped, and just like this is why I fell in love with these movies in the first place. Joker is honestly worse than a couple of the movies that detracted me to begin with to not watch superheroes for like a year. And I can't help but think it's like, second movie in back to watching these movies, and here we are. And it's Warner Brothers and DC yet again screwing the pooch. And I fear for the future of DC, and that includes Matt Reeves's Batman sequel. It's just because there's no consistency.
You fear for the future now.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, just now, just with the Joker too. I mean, like DC has been doomed for a long time, man. I mean, come on, you saw that director's cut.
Oh, I know, but like still, I thought, okay, James Gunn now is over there in charge, and it's come out to say that James Gunn, or apparently like Todd Phillips's contract with this movie was to say that, okay, I'm going to make this, but he can have no notes, no nothing. I don't want him involved at all. All right, you clearly fancy yourself an artiste, then. I don't just.
Yeah, but so does James Gunn. You're right.
Right.
Anyways, I wanted to ask, because I think I'm on watch number 6. What number are you up to, Deadpool Wolverine?
Are we counting the in-theater viewing experiences or just total?
I think both in theater and digital.
Okay, so I think I'm around 7.
Okay, so we're on course. We're
on track. It just, as I said when we originally reviewed Deadpool and Wolverine, I haven't laughed that hard or that like just naturally at something in a very long time, and it was like Neosporin for the soul almost. And there are just still parts I don't even have to be watching. I can be thinking about them, and I just start cracking up.
Yeah, it wasn't an invitation to go down the rabbit hole. All right, we're not in the Matrix here.
Listen. You remember like how deep are we into this recording? Like what, 15 minutes or so, or 17 minutes? It was like minute 2 of how you needed me and how all those compliments you threw at me. Just think about that for a moment and bring that Matt back.
I mean, that has like a limited time warranty on it.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's like one of those things, if I buy it, like it only works for a certain amount of time, and then I gotta like go buy another one. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. Basically, it's like it's like a car. Runs out of gas, you got to go fill it up.
I don't know. I don't like this. Anyway, on to the next thing. Don't watch Joker 2 ever.
So it's clearly a botch from Frank. It's probably a botch from me. I'm still gonna watch it because I just have to see how bad it is. Hate watch.
A spite.
I've done it with other movies. I've done that totally with other movies.
You've done it with better, worse movies. We'll just say that.
Yeah. Next up, we got RoboDoc, and this kind of was the inspiration for the Retro Counsel, right? So I've kind of brought up this story, a few months ago. It really was more than a few months ago, but we were talking about rewatching RoboCop, and Franklin and I were just like, I don't know if I can put myself through that movie again. And one day, last week, I was scrolling around on Amazon Prime and just wanted to see if I was just looking for something to watch. And I specifically actually was kind of looking for a documentary type of thing. But this RoboDoc popped up, and it came out last year. So 2023. And I was like, how did I not come across this? Because I'm out here, I surf all the things. It takes me like a half hour to pick something because I've seen so much and I just want something new. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to put this on because this movie is kind of over the top. I have to know how they made this movie. And it did not disappoint. This was so entertaining to watch. I immediately texted Frank. I was like, Frank, you got to watch this. Frank, what were your thoughts?
Listen, when he was telling me what it was, and my always first question is, how many episodes is this? And he goes, it's 4 1-hour episodes. I'm thinking how are they getting a 4-hour documentary out of RoboCop, of the making of RoboCop? But then I I take a moment, I think, and I'm just like, I bet they probably could have got 10 episodes out of the making of RoboCop, because if you're familiar with the movie, it's just so over the top and wacky. There's no way the production wasn't wacky. And as Matt alluded to, it doesn't disappoint. And forever, if you're like us who have seen the movie and you're thinking like, oh, I bet that was crazy how that movie was made. Whatever you're thinking, you need to times that by 10 and you might be halfway there.
He's not lying. I mean, like some of the stuff that they were doing in this film, like they almost got shut down by the city. Like that's how ridiculous it was.
Tell me about the explosion.
So this is one of my favorite scenes, right? So there's a scene where they get this brand new artillery gun, right? Because they're trying to take down RoboCop, and the gang of guys is they're on like this like street, the shop street, right? And they're blowing up these shops. Well, so as they're getting set up for this scene, the shops were props, but people actually lived on the other side of the street, and they were yelling at the people, the residents who actually live there, do not stand in front of your windows. It's not safe there.
It was like a megaphone. They're on the megaphone, like back away from your windows.
Back away. Do not watch this. It's not safe. And the actors are sitting there, well, like they're behind like a window, they're up top. I'm down here on the street where you're blowing this stuff up. Like, so what does that mean for me? And apparently they got like what, stunt pay or something like on top of their normal salary.
Because what had happened was when the explosion went, some of the glass from the prop shop had hit the one actor in the face, giving him like the nip of a nip of a nip of a nip. Obviously I'm not trying to take away from what he probably went through, but it wasn't like anything awful. And because the production was so like, and this is just one story out of a million of crazy stories, they were so far into production at that point and so afraid of like these actors going on strike or getting sued. They're like, best we can do is stunt pay to shut you up, 500 extra bucks today. And he's just like, great, we can do that.
Yeah. So they blew up this street. I mean, like, and the explosions are huge. And probably the biggest explosion is the gas station.
Yeah.
Because that's always what stuck in my mind when I watched the film. And I was like, oh, I hope they bring this up. And they totally did. And that's actually almost what got them shut down, was that explosion, because the city was like, no way.
So they also you get to meet the director, who is just this absurd man from, what was he, like Germany or something like that. And this guy, talented director, and you've seen his other movies. If you've watched Total Recall, it's the same guy.
I love Total Recall. Just
absolutely. But he's just as crazy as you'd think he'd be. And one of my favorite parts of the documentary. Before we get talking about the star of the movie, Peter Weller, who got a few thoughts about him, but is a scene that never really like blimped on my radar as something that would be funny or interesting. And there's a scene at the end of the movie where RoboCop's fighting the one bad guy and kills him. The big poker knife comes out of his knuckles, and RoboCop like stabs him in the neck. And the movie's super gory. So in the movie, you just see like the blood splatter down on RoboCop. Well, here, the director did like 5 takes of that, wasn't happy, and finally just said, you know what? He took someone's cup of coffee, spilled the coffee, and he goes, go fill this with fake blood. And they did. So when the knife went in and you show the reaction of RoboCop, all you see is like out of nowhere, just this like a crazy amount, a cup full of blood, like hit RoboCop on the chest. That's the director throwing blood on RoboCop because he was always after more gore and violence. So when after watching this documentary, watching the movie, I just couldn't, I burst out laughing because I can just see this guy throwing the blood down on the actor.
Once you watch this and you understand the thought process that went behind some of these scenes, it makes the movie so much like, it's just so funnier to watch. Like it's funny. By the way, he's a Dutch director.
Dutch director. Thank you, Matt.
Whenever I see Dutch, I always think Austin Powers. There's only 2 things I hate in this world: people who are disrespectful of other people's cultures, and the Dutch.
And going off of what Matt said, you get all these little stories about the dumbest scenes, like scenes that never would have mattered to you before watching this documentary, and you get the stories behind them, and it almost makes it as if you've ever seen RoboCop, then you watch RoboDoc, and you did what we did, watch RoboCop again. It's almost like watching it for the first time again, or with a fresh pair of eyes, and it's rare that you can do that. And it just was such a wonderful experience. But I think we can't not talk about this documentary, but without talking about the artiste known as Peter Weller, the auteur.
Before you get into that, I just want to just another example of just how gory this movie originally was. They could not get an R rating on this movie. They had to go back and make multiple cuts for them to get the R rating on this film. And they actually bring it up in the documentary that now there are rules on how many times you can resubmit because of this movie.
It's like the RoboCop rule, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just goes to show, like, that's how wild this movie probably originally was. And the movie is wild to begin with, with all the cuts, and I'm doing cuts, like air quotes here. People are just listening. What was this movie before these cuts? Like, I can't even imagine what it was.
You get a taste of that in the documentary, which is what I love.
Right.
So, anyways, onto the star of RoboCop.
Peter Weller is the actor who played RoboCop, and we get to meet Peter Weller is like one of the first people interviewed. Naturally, he's the star of the movie, and he's just, the moment he starts talking, you just kind of get the impression. You immediately know and understand, like, this guy's a jerk. He is just such a jerk.
I got the same vibe when he started about, like, so he talks about, there's one point where he talks about how he came up with the movements for RoboCop, which they are amazing. Like, he nails that.
He did a good job. There's no question. He did a great job. But
there's no question. But when he explains it, I'm like, man, I would not want to hang out with this guy.
He's so pretentious. And, after a while, you get into like episode 2, 3, and 4, and you start getting, the other actors or the stunt people or the grips or the makeup department, all the people that worked with him, they all have their own little personal Peter Weller story. Does not paint him in the best light. And, you might think like, one story, I'm sure that's embellished a little bit, but these stories just keep coming and coming and coming. There's just no way after a while they're not true. And it's just like,
and Peter like denies like some of these things, some of these stories. This never happened. I was like, I bet you it did happen.
So we're Matt and I, ever since watching this documentary, we have been just randomly throwing this back and forth through texting. So we're gonna give you just a little taste of a Peter Weller story, and I think this comes in like the very last episode. It's on like one of the last days of filming. He's in the RoboCop suit. And as you can imagine, that suit probably was terrible to work with. And he tells you how terrible it was. But he's up on like some balcony, and there's a stunt guy or prop guy up there, just kind of up there making sure like he's, the costume's looking good, making sure he's ready for the shoot. And this grip or prop person has a handful of Oreos. Now, before I tell you what Peter Weller does, it's important to know that Peter Weller is what you call a method actor, meaning he doesn't break character, not until the DVD commentary, okay? And he is...
I know who I am. The dude disguised as another dude.
That's right. So Peter Weller isn't Peter Weller when he's on set. He is RoboCop. So RoboCop, not Peter, sees that this grip has a handful of Oreos, and he literally turns to this guy and says, "Robo want Oreo." And this guy, this grip goes on, he's the one telling the story, and he goes, to be honest, we were like 3 weeks over schedule, blah, blah, blah.
They had had it with him. They had it with Peter Weller. They were
over him and his, let's call it eccentricities or whatever the word is. And the guy goes, "No, I'm not." He goes, "RoboCop can't have an Oreo, but Peter can have an Oreo." And Peter is just like, "How dare you not call me RoboCop?" Gets to the point where they're ready to say action, and they're not budging. And you know, RoboCop's yelling down, he has Oreos, I want Oreos. And the director's yelling up on a megaphone, like, hey, I want, if you have Oreos, give Peter an Oreo. So this guy has had it to the point where he just takes his handful of Oreos, puts them all in his mouth, doesn't eat them, but he crunches them in his mouth. So they're like literally raining down on everybody.
Falling out of his mouth.
Right? And Peter Weller decides, all right, screw you. I will not shoot this scene until I get an Oreo. So delays the shoot for like an hour so someone can run up there, give him Oreos, gets all the Oreos stuff in his teeth. They had to send someone else up, clean the stuff out of his teeth. And then he's like, okay, I'm ready to shoot.
Yeah.
I would have smacked him. You know?
Yeah. And there's like, you know, there obviously they bring up a couple different stories, but the best part was like Peter Weller was like, I love you. That's a lie. That never happened. You made it all up.
Yeah, and it's one of the ones that he denies happening. But again, this story comes very late into the documentary, and by this point, this is like the 15th or 20th Peter Weller story you hear of this variety, and it's just like, no, that one definitely happened.
It wasn't even just him too. Like people were over, you know, the director because he wanted more blood, he wanted more explosions. He was pressing the special effects like in stunt crew, like over the top. And the same guy with the Oreos, you know, they bring up you know, a story where like him and the director were arguing, and something that the director would say a lot of is, if you're going to F me, then just F me. And like, and he would just say it again. And then so the one day, you know, the same guy with the Oreos, like the stunt coordinator, special effects guy, he had just had it, and he basically told him, yeah, I'm trying to F you. And he goes, the director says, well, at least he's trying to F me, and he at least told me to my face.
That's right. And you know, one of the things that makes it funnier is the director at the time knew little to no English, so it's like obviously the first words he's going to learn are the profanities. I mean, you know, we've all like, you know, you meet someone speaks a different language. Well, how do you say this? You know, but
right. But really, like once you see what he was trying to do in the movie they created, like he was trying to create some of those comedic moments, and you know, I think that's what made it great. And even him pushing the boundaries, it really made for a good movie.
So I agree 100%. Like those comedic moments, like, and now there's so many more moments in the movie that I didn't realize were supposed to be like taken kind of funny. And the movie has a satirical nature to begin with, but like when he threw the blood down on RoboCop, now I laugh my butt off when I watch that. So it's cool just to kind of see like, hey, this is serious, this is funny, and kind of get that perspective of it. To not that I didn't know, but like the little specific scenes, like, oh, that's, you know.
Well, you bring up a good point too, like the meaning kind of behind RoboCop, like why they even came up with this idea. Like, why don't you touch a little bit on that?
So this one guy, the writer, who, you know, I'm not going to spoil the writer for you because this guy's guess what? He's crazy too. He was like happened to be working at the studio as like an errand boy, and happened to be on the set of the original Blade Runner, and he got the idea for RoboCop, and through just kind of walking down one of the Blade Runner sets, and he was just like, you know, it was made in the 80s, so it was at a time where was the corporations were taken over and things like that. Help me if I'm missing a point.
Yeah, no, and where he kind of got to it though is, you know, Blade Runner, the robot's human.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a robot, right? But you know, yeah, at the time you're kind of going down the right road. Like there was a lot of things going on in the world, right? And they kind of wanted to represent that with this movie, like, you know, corporations just kind of owning everything. And what if you got owned kind of as like a piece of property, right? And that's what RoboCop really becomes, because the police are basically, it's like there's a company and they go and they like sell their services, like, oh, we'll offer you police, you know, protection in your city, and here's how we're going to do it. And yeah, that's where we're coming up
But
with
And they essentially own the police and control the police then, which, you know, shocker, is a dangerous thing, you know?
Yeah, exactly, and just kinda just showing some of the dangers of where the world at that time was kinda going and some of those underlying things. They kinda tried to show that in this movie. But yeah, but RoboCop, was a human being who was a police officer originally, right? And then, this tragic incident happens to him. They basically they even tell you in the movie that his contract, they say they own him.
Mhm.
Right, and they
Right.
turn him into this, robot device, that they're using as they see fit, right? He has no control. He's no longer a person.
Right. And even his it's funny because I think, we can probably start transitioning and just talking about the movie now. I when he go and obviously RoboDoc is a stream for both of us. It's on Amazon Prime. Definitely check it out. But entering into Retro Counsel where we're talking about the movie itself, I like how vague they keep his directives. It's like protect the public trust. Okay, but what does that actually mean in terms of what the is trying to be accomplished? And the ones like uphold the law. Okay, fine. The law according to whom though? And it just I like how they keep reiterating those points, and you can see and when they go into his perspective, it pops up on his screen. But
Yeah,
every time it pops up, it's literally right after someone has told him to do something different from what he's been doing. So it's like I like how they left it vague so it could change for whatever the plot was demanding at the current time.
yeah, and as the movie goes on, he starts to get a little bit of these hints that, he maybe had a life before he was this robot, because that's all he ever knows, right?
Right.
And as he starts to investigate this crime, he runs into his old partner. He then, finds out that he was murdered. He goes to where him and his family used to live, which is like one of the more kind of like, right here in the heart, type of moments of the movie, right? And as he's walking through, you see the life, you're getting glimpses of what his life was before it was basically taken away.
Right. And it's almost in a way kind of like Frankenstein's monster realizing that there was something before this, and it plays into that a little bit, but you know, also just the production itself. It was made during that happy time before CGI. So the special effects and everything, yeah, it can be over the top, but it still looks better than some movies that are being made today, which really goes to show if you shoot it for real and you do the practical effects, yeah, it's tough to do. But look at the end product versus something like I'm going to use the Flash as an example that was just awful looking.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. It really helps stand the test of time. We've talked about that on other, retro council movies, that these, movies that were shot in the 80s and 90s where they used these practical stunts, the special effects. They look, they still look great today. And,
Yeah,
RoboCop does have a few of those, moments because of what they were using at the time, right? Where you're like, but it doesn't really bother me because it's an older movie. I know that about it. It's different than when I watch special effects today,
right.
right? Like if I go back and watch Harry Potter, like I can see everywhere there's a green screen.
Yeah. But, it's funny, and through watching the documentary, there's a scene where you see, like, he's looking through the wall, and it's like the thermal vision. The technology, they didn't think existed for them to film that yet, so they got these guys in, like, spandex and painted it to look like, thermal vision. Had I not watched that documentary, I would have never have known that that's how they did that. You could have been, like, giving me 100 years to try to figure out how they shot that scene. I would have never came up with that. And I say they think that that technology didn't exist because, half a world away, down in the jungles of Brazil or wherever they shot it, a little movie, one of my other favorite movies from the 80s, Predator, was being shot, and they had the technology to do the Predator thermal vision.
Right, but like I know we're kind of jumping back and forth, but I
Yeah,
think it's kind of one and the same type of a review, right? But
sure.
one of the things that I found hilarious when I was watching the documentary too was the trailer for this movie.
Oh, yeah.
They like did it. They had like no money, for advertising this movie, and they had a trailer for it. They had no music because the music wasn't made yet, and they ended up using the theme song from Terminator because Terminator was the movie that they had put out before, and like they actually wanted Arnold Schwarzenegger to play RoboCop, but they said, "Well, he's already big, and when you put the suit on him, he's going to be even bigger."
Right. And without Terminator being the success that it was, we would have had no RoboCop. So RoboCop was a lot of the success to the original Terminator. And that music, you watch the trailer and it's like, oh, that definitely plays. It's like the nose plays.
Yeah,
um,
but
I
go ahead, go
I
ahead.
really enjoyed the
You
score.
don't have you don't have a lot of thoughts usually, so go ahead.
Well, you don't have a lot of thoughts either, but I try not to talk about the music too much in the movies because there's someone on this podcast that once called me out for you always got to comment on the music, but for
You know
this
what though? The music is a good soundtrack is what makes a great movie.
and this soundtrack, it's just like Basil, someone did the score. The music just fires off on all cylinders. Like his theme song alone, it's like the dun 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 dun. He's just like mowing down guys with his blaster.
You know, it's RoboCop.
And I got goosebumps just thinking about it. It's like, oh, it gets you pumped, just like it makes it you're already drawn in, but this music starts blaring and it's just hitting at all the right moments, and it pulls you even deeper. It's like it grabs you by the skull and pulls you into the screen.
A lot of dark, ominous tones.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Sorry. I was like,
music.
I was like, where have I heard that before? And it's Forgetting Sarah Marshall. He's like, I just make a lot of something dark and on him. Every time he goes into yeah. But really what we recommended, kind of both of them together, like Frank said, watch RoboCop, watch RoboDoc, and then rewatch RoboCop and see how you feel differently about the movie after you watch the documentary. Now, so I think they're both streams for us. Obviously, we're recommending them, but
I think RoboCop's on HBO Max. In fact, all like 4 or 5 of the RoboCop movies are on, but you just go ahead and stop at the original.
Well, that's where I was going to go next. So they're on Max, right? Like you brought up, and Frank already told you, just stop at the original. All of them are on Max, but basically what happened is the studio, what is it, Orion? I think they were putting out all these films at the time. They were going under, and what does studios usually do? They're going to pump out and push out, the movies that have made them money in the past. So they put out RoboCop 2, a RoboCop 3, and some people like 2. No one really likes 3, but just stop with the original.
I actually, and I'm not going to get into all of them, but I rewatched not only 2 and 3, but I watched the remake as well, just because I just got on a roll. As a kid, I remember liking 2. As an adult, the only good part of 2 is like the last 20 minutes. And I'm not saying 3 is a good movie by any stretch of the imagination, but 3 was not as bad as I remember. And the remake is hollow.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the remake. Yeah, don't even watch that either.
Right.
But any final comments, Frank, before we end today's episode?
Honestly, man, I really just enjoyed the recommendation. Matt, this was a killer find on your part, because I'm not saying I would have never watched RoboCop again, but as you said, it's just so over the top and bombastic. You kind of do have to be in the right mood for it. But now, after watching this documentary, I'm going to put it up there with Predator and The Thing and The Fly as like some of my favorite movies from the 80s. The original Ghostbusters, just a hardcore 80s classic and one heck of a good time.
Yeah, I agree. Couldn't have said it better. We got to get like a board when one of us like wins on a recommendation.
That's right.
That's right. But hey, thanks again for listening to our 6 listeners out there. We appreciate everyone who does tune into these and shows us love. But we'll catch you next time. Same streaming platform, same streaming time. Later.